As we continue from our last discussion, we delve into the misunderstood notion of freedom as experienced by the grandmother. She lived in a time when the concept of sexual freedom was foreign. Then came the post-war utopians, promising a world where women could make unlimited choices without constraint. The caveat? They failed to highlight the importance of accepting the consequences of these choices. This new wave of thought painted traditional moral norms as nothing more than irrational roadblocks to pleasure. The grandmother, like other women of her time, was swept in this tide of change. She was led to believe that she could act as she pleased, and that this unrestrained freedom was the ultimate path to happiness. But this freedom was not without its risks that were conveniently swept under the rug. The grandmother, like many women of her time, was led to believe that unrestrained freedom would lead to happiness without risk. The repercussions of this misguided notion of freedom echo in the alarming reasoning of the date rape movement. This movement, with its ominous undertones, pushes for the law to replace moral principle and common prudence in protecting women. The implications of this demand are far-reaching, painting a picture of a society where the literal presence of a policeman in every bedroom becomes not just a metaphor, but a frightening reality. In our eagerness to create a completely safe environment, we risk stripping individuals of their responsibility for their actions, their choices, and the consequences that follow. This is not to say we lack sympathy for the young people misled by these ideas. On the contrary, we empathize deeply with both the men and women caught in this tumultuous wave of social change. Yet, we must stand firm. While we sympathize with those misled by these ideas, it is crucial to uphold the principles of responsibility that our freedom depends upon. In stark contrast to this, let us reflect on the traditional view of a woman's erotic power. This power was never considered an unconditional personal right. Instead, it was a force intertwined with extensive responsibilities to her God, her family, her partner, her offspring, and importantly, to herself. This responsibility necessitated a certain level of self-control, a virtue once known as modesty. Modesty chiefly demanded premarital chastity and marital fidelity. It also called for a specific demeanor towards men, courteous yet reserved. Now, every duty does imply a right. In the context of this modesty, a woman indeed had the right to refuse the advances of any man who wasn't her husband. Why? Because morally speaking, she had no right to accept a proposal of fornication or adultery. This duty also implied a right. A woman had the right to refuse any man who wasn't her husband, because she had no moral right to accept a proposal of fornication or adultery.